You have just as much a right to be here as anyone else. You have just as much of a right as anyone else to express yourself and live an abundant life and go after your dreams. I think as long as your actions, the actions you are taking, don't impact anyone else's ability to do the same, as long as what you're doing doesn't impact someone's free will and their ability to make those same choices for themselves, go after, take up space, do what you want with your one life. Who really benefits from you shrinking yourself? It's not you. Well, maybe it's a part of you that thinks that it is only safe. And so it's like a part of you that's trying to stay safe, but who really benefits? Is that part of you really protecting you? Is it really making you proud? Um, I'm going to talk about my own experiences with this because I know for a time for me, shrinking myself, staying small was definitely keeping me safe. And it was keeping me, well, safe, but in a very, like, in a total illusion. The safety was a total illusion. Spoiler, here we go into the story. It was keeping me safe because I grew up in a very religious home and I was given a purity ring at 16, and it was very like I was really disciplined into, like, physically disciplined into listening to my parents and doing whatever someone's interpretation of the Bible said to do. And so there was, and that gave me belong by being so good, by following those rules, by doing all of that, that kept me safe, quote unquote safe, and it gave me a sense of belonging in this community. And then whenever I found out that my dad had been having affairs for years, that I was literally given a purity ring by someone who had been having affairs, I was like, that whole world came shattering down, and I started to deconstruct a lot of these beliefs that I was raised under. And so it wasn't like I've also always been like a pretty expressive person. I've danced since I was little. I've done theater since I was little. And so there's like a way that you can show up in those things and maybe be loud or be outspoken or be expressive, but still not true to yourself, like not taking up space as who you really are or what you really want. And so it's not necessarily just like, am I a confident person or do I come across as a confident person? And oh, and that means I take up space. Not necessarily. And so for me, like whenever after that, and I started to deconstruct, my dancing, I started to do burlesque, and I was having a lot of fun and really enjoying myself. And one specific time, so here's we get into like who was benefiting from me staying small. One time I was in rehearsal for a burlesque performance, and my best friend and I, we've done theater together since high school. And so we've been best friends for years. And we were in rehearsal for this burlesque show. And the main group, but like we weren't in the number that was being rehearsed at that time. And so we were just sitting there kind of like playing around. And we were talking about how awkward those photos are whenever someone's like behind a guitar nude and they like take this I guess you would call it boudoir photo behind a guitar in the nude. And we were like, okay, those photos are awkward, but you know what would be more awkward is if we're both behind a guitar in the nude, or seemingly in the nude. So like we just tucked our clothes like under so where you couldn't really see them, and took this photo of both of us behind a guitar, like kind of dramatic. And we thought it was so funny, and I shared it on my Instagram. I was getting like more, I was starting to express, take up space. Like that's one way to take up space, share what you want, express yourself as an act of devotion to your own voice and what you think is funny and what you create and your story. And so I shared this photo, and my mom called me. And now I was dating someone at the time, and like we'll just call him boyfriend. And my mom calls me and she's like, that photo of you and your boyfriend is, I don't know if I can say this word on here, P-O-R, nography. And I was, it wasn't even a photo of me and my boyfriend at the time. It was a photo of me and my friend, and who she had met multiple times at that point already. So she was like, that photo of you and your boyfriend is cornography. And and I remember being like, What? What? Like, here I am making a joke, like doing something funny. Like it was such satire, and I'm getting this reaction, and that was just like the tip of the iceberg of just my parents finding ways to assert their opinions about my life. And then shortly after that, no, I think it was actually like a year after this, there was one time where I had gotten into heels dancing, and I'm teaching heels dance at this point. This was like 2020. And because going back to taking up space, I think one of the huge things that has helped me in learning to take up space has been this journey with dance. But it's like at the same time, the parallel train tracks of that were that it was also what, like, the dance was also what made me realize all the ways that I had not been taking up space, or all of the things that had to be let go in order for me to take up space. Because as I leaned into dance and became more and more expressive in this way that I wanted to move and how I wanted to create and what was fun for me and what was enjoyable for me and the opportunities that were coming to me, I realized in that moment all the reasons I hadn't been doing that before, because I was finding out about my parents' opinions of it. And I was realizing how much I was still living under that lens of like caring what people thought. And it's one thing to be like, oh, don't care what people think. And then that's another thing for it to be your family. Like, it's very difficult. So if when I say that to you, to take up space, don't care what people think. Like, I know how difficult it is to even have the people you love most in the world be the ones whose opinion you have to release and let go of in order to take up space and be yourself and express yourself fully. And so this in 2020, back to that story, I was teaching heels dance, and I got a text from my dad that said something along the lines of, I saw your dancing video on Facebook, and spare me any of your anti-objectifying women claptrap, but is that really the best you can do with your God-given brains and talent? I'm shocked, and I love you too much to not to say anything. And that last part, I mean, the whole thing, you can imagine it's like when you get punched in the gut, like, oh, like I felt nauseous reading that. And I that year, my like intention for that year, the thing that I'd set out just a few months before, because this was at the beginning of 2020, right before everything went down. So this is at the beginning of 2020. And I had set my intention for that year to be to embody love. And immediately, as soon as I started to think about embodying love, I was like, okay, how do I define love? What is love? What does love mean to me? How do I embody it? How do I to like find love, create love, make love, be love, talk love, hear love, see love? Like, well, how do I embody love? What does love mean to me? And I looked at that last part of the sentence, or the last part of the message, I love you too much not to say anything. And I was able to look at it. I had distanced myself enough at that point from their opinions to go, is that real? Is that really what love means? Or is that the kind of love that I even want to accept? Do I accept that kind of love? And I really think it's true, the saying, hurt people, and healed people heal people. And in that moment, I just thought of the kind of love that my dad had been given, and then the kind of love that I had been given. And I do think that they did their best. And I think even in that moment, he was expressing his love, the love that he had. But it was a line in the sand for me to go, oh, I don't receive that kind of love, or I can accept that that is how you show me love, that you really think you are doing the best for me right now by saying that to me. But I don't have to listen to that opinion. I don't have to let that dictate who I am or what I do. I'm a grown woman at that point, which I think is also part of the freedom and part of this journey for me, was the fact that I was standing on my own 2 feet as a grown woman at that point, versus how much harder that is whenever you are still completely dependent on your parents. And so so it's like, yeah, now people say stuff to me on the internet, like, I don't care. My own parents, I've had to separate myself from caring about their opinion or letting them stop me from taking up space in the way that I want to. And so I just and actually even, like, I got a letter from my grandma also at one point saying how I used to be one of the good ones. And like that stuff, it still breaks my heart to some degree. I would love to have them love me. And not because, right, because they do. His message said he did love me. But for me to actually feel loved. And the thing is, I'm not going to change who I am and the person I want to be and the things I want to create, the space that I want to take up and how I want to take up that space in order to try to get love. That's kind of the opposite of taking up space. That's like fitting into someone else's narrative. So when you get into like conceptually taking up space, it is creating your own way, creating, because I think every choice that you make is a creative act. You choose how you think, you choose how you feel, you choose how you move and how you act and how you react. You're choosing all of those things. You can't choose everything that happens to you in your life, but you can choose how you think, move, and feel. And all of those choices are creative acts. So you're taking up space every time that you make a choice, every time that you create. It's like that George Bernard Shaw quote. The goal is not to find yourself, the goal is to create yourself. In that creation, in creating something, that creation takes up space. So you are taking up space with every single thing that you create. So let's go back to that question that I asked earlier. Who benefits from you shrinking yourself? Yeah, maybe a part of you that's trying to gather belonging, but going back to like my own story, was I really safe if that was the kind of conditional love that I was receiving? Was I really benefiting from that love, from acceptance for someone, like being accepted as a version of myself who I did not want to be? I would rather be myself and not be accepted by someone else than try to change who I am in order to be accepted. That's me taking up space as who I am. If I am choosing to create the person, to take the choices, to make the choices that I want to make for my life and create the person that I want to be, I'm taking up that space with my own ownership, my own personal sovereignty over my life, and the fact that this is my one life. So, who benefits from you saying small? Maybe it is other people in your life also who benefit from you being a version that serves them, that is part of their worldview. But you don't owe them that. You don't owe anyone that. Who you owe is yourself. You owe it to yourself to make yourself proud. So I want to get into that with, as far as taking up space, what advice I would give to someone in taking up space. And I think it is fundamentally like not caring what other people think and accepting that they will have their opinions regardless. And you are creating, with every choice that you make, you are creating your life. You are stepping into your power, or you are with every bit of self-expression, you are taking up space in a way that is true to yourself, and you're taking up space as who you are. You're taking up space as the person that you are creating. So if that is the main umbrella, not caring what other people think and really just creating your life, making your choices, expressing yourself. So here's some of the practical things that I think go into that, because again, it goes back to not taking up someone else's ability to do the same, not stepping over their ability to make their own choices, not taking away their free will from them. You have your free will, they have their free will. I believe we are all one in that. So you can see that mirror of, oh, if I'm free to do this, then you're free to do this as well. So there, and I think that basically covers anything that someone says, like, be a nice person. I think that that is a lot uh, of that is covered, because also people have their own opinions about good and bad, right and wrong, nice and mean. Like we're all even that choice to call something good, to call something bad, to call something nice, to call something mean, that choice is a creative act. You're still creating yourself, you're creating your values, you're creating the meaning behind those words, behind that action. Whether someone did something like say someone just maybe doesn't smile at you as they're walking into the elevator, you could be like, oh, that was mean. Maybe they're having the worst day of their life. You don't know. It's live and let live. Let them, you know, I mean, they're not necessarily being mean in that process. Would it be nice if they smiled at you and said hi? Yeah, sure. But also maybe you're someone, you're in your own world. You don't want them saying hi. You don't want them to be talking to you because you're going over you got 5 minutes before you got to go do something, and so you're trying to stay in that space. So I think that it's like people are like, be a nice, I think as long as you're a nice person, it's like, what is that? You have your own definition of it, and I have my own definition of it. And I think as long as you're not infringing on anyone else's right to make their own choices and live their own life, then that covers a lot of these bases. So just anyway, so let's get into some more practical ideas for taking up space, how this can be lived out in your life. First one is to speak without apologizing, to not say, sorry, I have an idea in the meeting, but like, oh, I would like to add something, right? That's taking up space. That's asserting yourself. That's not because who are you? Why are you apologizing? Again, goes back to the very first thing I said. You have just as much as right, just as much of a right to share your ideas as anyone else. So why would it be fine for them to share their ideas without apologizing? And you need to apologize before you share your ideas? No, take up space. Okay, next one, letting yourself be seen. And this is beyond just like I mentioned with, say, social media or posting what you want or sharing your art or whatever. Like we can even take that part out of it, even though it is such a huge part of our world for a lot of people. That could just be maintaining eye contact, sitting, even if it's, you know, you kind of want to dart away or whatever, it's standing with good posture. Letting yourself be seen can be walking into a room with the chest lifted, shoulders dropped, chin, eyes, you know, all aligned, walking confidently. That's letting yourself be seen. People notice that versus shrinking yourself. Again, who benefits from you shrinking yourself? Now, we can actually go into something here, a little bit of a tangent, because it goes back to, well, you're probably protecting yourself from something if you are shrinking. And I'm just going to say this, but I get a lot of attention whenever I walk into rooms or whenever I'm around or whenever I'm outside. I've traveled the whole world at this point. It's not like nation exclusive, like this is She's Spectacular worldwide, okay? Um, this is me taking up space, even just saying that and acknowledging that. And anyone who's ever been out with me would back that up. So, sometimes I don't want to be seen because I don't have the capacity to, and it's a ball cap, glasses, oversized clothes. And sometimes that's okay too, because that's just the capacity. I don't have capacity to be seen, to be witnessed. I am protecting myself from something, and that is people coming up and talking to me or cat calls or whatever it is, because I just don't have the energy for that. I'm not in that frame of mind. But also, I think but that's because my default though is to be confident and expressive, and because I embody this so much in my dance and what I'm doing all the time and in the life that I'm living and the way I show up to like parties with friends or just whatever I'm doing in my life. I'm typically going to show up very confident, very expressed, very like, this is, again, I've overcome even like what my own bloodline had to say about me being myself. I'm gonna just show up, right? And like I can go into that really confidently, but also there are times whenever it's like because I know how much attention that can get, where I'm just like, no, and I have to protect myself from that. But if you are not necessarily in that default of like being confident, and your default is not letting yourself be seen and feeling really hidden and not walking confidently, having your posture very hunched over, very small, very contained, fearful, then try walking into rooms more confidently and letting yourself be seen. That's one way to take up space. And another great idea is to not rush to fill a silence. So this is taking up space in a way that isn't even like, I think sometimes people think taking up space, it's kind of like what I said, was talking about a little bit earlier, like walking in confidently and being confident, being boisterous, being really loud. That can be taking up space, but so can silence. And especially like maybe someone has said something and you don't have to fill the room, or even say someone says something to you and you don't want to respond. You don't owe them an explanation. I've even had that like happen to me in elevators. Someone wants to start talking to me and I don't have the energy. And I don't mean for it to be mean, but I don't owe them anything. I'm not there to like visit them. I'm trying to get from one floor to another or whatever it is. Like that's just one example, but you don't owe anyone anything. And so sometimes silence even, that's it. It's like what I was saying earlier. Sometimes letting yourself be seen can be the way that you take up space, but also sometimes if you don't have that capacity, letting yourself taking up space is taking what you need in that moment, and that might be going a little more incognito in that moment or being silent. That's taking what you need. Take up space doesn't have to be confident all the time, loud all the time. Sometimes taking up space is the rest and the quiet and the silence, and even in conversation, just letting there be a silence. How loud is that? Right? That takes up space. That takes up some time. Neither of us are getting that time back. That silence, that's now, those couple of seconds, those are now gone. They're gone. Right? All the more reason, right? To take up space. And I kind of touched on this, but like not over explaining. That goes into the silence. But at the same time, so you can be like silent and not having to over explain. You don't need to over explain yourself. On the other hand, you also have stating your needs and saying what it is that you need in a moment. And that's taking up space, saying, this is a need that I have. And this is one that I am still getting comfortable with, to be honest with you. Asking for what I need is because, yeah, going back to like growing up and that kind of thing, like it was just often easier to not have needs. And I got pretty good at either meeting my needs myself or pretending that they didn't exist and just being fine without them. And this is something actually, even like staying in an Airbnb, in this Airbnb that I've been in, is like different things will happen, and I see myself immediately being like, oh, I don't want to be nagging. Oh, I don't want to be too needy. Oh, think about that word. Oh, being needy, that judgment call, going again back to the meaning that we give to things. Oh, I don't want to be needy. Why not? You have needs. It's okay to have needs. And where is that line? That's your choice. That again goes back to like, what is the space that you want to take up? How much are you infringing on someone else's free will in those things? Like, because they're allowed to think, wow, this girl's really annoying. That's okay. I'm okay with that. If my needs are getting met and I don't think that I'm doing it in any kind of way that's like obnoxious, then, but again, that's for them to judge. Maybe me just making a simple, and like I feel like that's even a trauma thing of like me feeling like me asking for something, someone's gonna be like, oh, yeah, that was obnoxious, or oh, she needs this or that. Like me assuming that me asking for something is going to bother the other person. Where did I learn that? I wonder. Where could I have that? Where could I have gotten that? So another thing is like, and this is going back to um having needs, is having opinions. You are allowed to have an opinion. Everything that I'm sharing today is like my experiences and my opinions. You can have a different opinion. That's okay. That goes back to this whole free will thing, that you have your ability to choose the meaning that you give to things and what you think about things. I have my ability to choose and my ability to give meaning to things, and I have my opinions and you have your opinions. That even goes back to like my dad's text or my mom's text about the photo, or like my dad's text about the heels dancing, or my grandma's letter about how I used to be one of the good ones. She's allowed to have that opinion, and I'm allowed to have my opinions. And I can be good with that. And we don't have to like all necessarily agree on anything or on everything. And I mean, yeah, I think we can all agree on certain things, going back to that, like what's nice, what makes a good quote unquote person. There are certain things that I think a lot of people are on the same page about, but even then, we are all totally unique. And as long as you're not messing with my ability to have my opinions, you're allowed to have your opinions. That's fine by me. I don't think that you are the ultimate judge. So, you know? And so your ability to have your opinions is also me giving you that ability, me granting you that permission to have your opinions, in turn gives me my right to have my opinions and to feel that way. And that goes back to like taking up space. Are you are you making yourself proud? Going back to that, who benefits from you taking up space? Who benefits from you shining? You know, who benefits from you shining? The part of you that wants to make yourself proud, that wants to go after your dreams, that wants to be courageous, that knows you have this one life. Like that part of you is benefiting from you shining, from you taking up space. And I think that that's beautiful. Like you getting to let yourself be seen, and how that's part of like the having the opinions, right? If you're making yourself proud and you know at the end of the day that you are happy with your own life, then that's the person to make proud. That's the judgment call that you were living up to in a way. And so I think the last one is just, and this goes into like the differing opinions and stuff, but is being getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, essentially, because it is uncomfortable when someone doesn't like you or the thing that you're doing. That can be uncomfortable. Or going back to stating your needs, saying something, needing something, potentially having someone think that that it's bothersome for you to have that need. It might get uncomfortable, and that is okay. Going back to a silences can feel so uncomfortable. Okay, take up space. Take up that space. Take up the space with that silence. Take up that space with your opinion that's different than someone else's. Okay, take up space. So that's who benefits from you shining. And also, not only just yourself, think about all of the people who could benefit from you taking up space, from you shining your light, from you expressing, from you creating your own way. Like, there are so many people who have messaged me that my dancing has like even changed their life, like because of how it inspired them to take action in their own life, or even just the fact that them watching me dance, even if they're not going up and dancing, they see the joy that I have dancing, and it brings them joy in that moment. Like, there's and that outweighs all of the opinions of anyone who would benefit from me shrinking. The number of people who would benefit from me shining my light, like, oh, I'm just getting kind of emotional thinking about it now. I don't think about it too often, but like, because I'm more like, okay, as long as I make myself proud, then awesome, cool beans. But even you listening to this, like, thank you for being here. See, this is where I'm just like, I'm just glad you're here. Like, it's not even like I'm like, oh yay, hopefully they'll listen to my advice or whatever it is. Like, of course, I want to help people. I love to help people. I commit to being of service to other people, of taking everything. Like, because I'm talking about those moments whenever I get those texts from my dad, letter from my grandma. Like, it's not like I was just like, I'm so easily letting this go and having my own opinion. No, in that moment, how that felt, it has been a long road. It has been a long road to get here and be able to sit here and talk about it freely and not, I mean, some emotions come up, but it's not like triggering in the way that it was then, which I'm just noticing for myself, even in this moment. Like, wow, this feels so good. And so, yeah, who benefits from you shining your light? Who benefits from you taking up space? The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist, but at the very least, you can make yourself proud. And so I hope that that is the main takeaway here as you take up space. I love you. And oh, well, one other thing, right? One other advice for taking up space, dance. Practice taking up space. Of course, I'm going to be biased. Rah rah, go dance. I love dancing and I encourage you to dance. You don't have to do it professionally or anything. Of course, I have tutorials on my YouTube, my TikTok, my Instagram, but I have an online dance course as well that is very, very wonderful, especially if you want to really progress and go get the fundamentals down and really grow a strong foundation for becoming a stronger dancer. But you can just put on music in the kitchen, or you don't even need music. One time I was doing 1,000 days of dance for mental health awareness. I danced every day for 1,000 days. And one day it was like 11:50 p.m. and I was in Vegas for an acting gig. And I wasn't dancing as part of that gig, and so it's like 11:50 p.m. I realized I hadn't danced yet that day, and I was with one of the other actors. We were actually going to the hot tub at the hotel we were at, and I was like, "Oh, I have to dance today." And so just starts going boo-dee boop bop boop 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 ba and like starts making up this little song that I dance to. So you don't even need like a device. Whatever device you're listening to this on, I'm sure will suffice. You just put on some music and then you start moving your body and it doesn't matter. Oh, there's a great line in the song, I think it's ESP by Nerd, and he's like, did you ever realize the universe just means one song? Your soul knew it all along. You were dancing since you were born. So keep dancing, my friend. Keep taking up space. And I love you. I'll see you in the next episode.